Now that I'm a little Canadian now. But welcome to our dojo here for our Friday. We've got Brad, Christopher, and Victoria here. Today, we usually do more psychological stuff. We'll kind of touch it a little bit, but again, we want to focus these for more newer agents, especially agents too that might just come from a DSNP, CSNP, MAPD realm that really don't have too much experience with Medicare supplements. But now the whole world of opportunity has opened up for you. But what we don't want you to do is just to fall back into the rut of it's really easy to sell something that you don't have to qualify for. Because if you know your stuff, if you can kind of get through a little bit and figure out why, you're going to learn that MedSups, it's very easy to figure out, but you have to think of it in a certain way. So I'm going to start with Brad, since Brad is the most tenured. How long do you think it took you to kind of master underwriting, and how many months, how many years? I mean, because we're still not at 100% where I can tell you it's going to get approved without a doubt.
That's an ongoing process. And to answer your question, I want to say probably at least a year, because if you go back 12 years ago, we didn't really have the resources that we have that we do today. And you just have to do a lot of research. Obviously improper underwriting leads to declines, which everybody knows that's a terrible thing to happen, and it causes a lot of work on the back end. But it really comes down to just knowing your craft, reading the underwriting guidelines, know who does what, use the resources that are available to us online, declinable drug lists, and know which company can do what, and that takes just time and learning, really. And eventually, and then that'll be all automated, but I don't think we're quite there yet. The thing with underwriting, it changes. It's not a one and done. You constantly have to check in and talk to underwriters. We've had things updated that we have no idea until we talk to an underwriter. Mutual of Omaha is a classic example. When we never got a memo saying that they'll accept over 50 units of insulin. How do we find out? We called an underwriter and oh yeah, we do that now. Hello, so a lot of business went somewhere else because we just didn't know. But yeah, it takes a lot of homework and just experience, I guess. I mean,
Let me do this, because I want to ask you two guys here. I feel like I'm doing the Steven thing where I'm like, let me start with Victoria here. So another tenured agent. When I say underwriting, what kind of theme, what idea just pops into your head real quick?
Challenge. Challenge I'm up for. Like, let's do this, baby. Let's dig in.
Okay, Christopher, what about you? When I say underwriting or underwritten, what immediately pops in your head?
I would say you want to ascertain these sort of red flags. If somebody's going to have a declinable condition, then you want to figure that out and then go from there in order to address their needs and their option, and present options to them. But because I know that the three of you can take a look at, if you've gathered information, you'd be like, they're going to be okay for this, but this is going to be an issue perhaps that we're going to have to address, and so on and so forth. So, yeah. So
more of like a challenge. Okay. Because when I think about it, when I do underwritten, it took me a little bit to kind of compartmentalize this. But when I say we have to do an underwritten policy, what that means in my head is, how much money is this person going to cost XYZ company? Because that's essentially what it is. When we did agent training back in the day, and I was first doing this, getting started, he made me do an exercise that actually worked out pretty well. That I would say for, a lot of you guys that are now coming into the supplemental realm, especially too, where you look at underwriting hospital indemnity plans. There's way more health questions on hospital indemnity plans than there are MedSup applications. So you're going to come into it eventually, especially if you're doing upsells with final expense and everything like that. You're going to have to address underwriting, so you might as well get a basis for it to start. Remember when I first did it, Frank, he made me print off a Mutual of Omaha application. And he made me go question by question and put in what the symptoms were for each condition, how it's treated, and commonly what medications are taken for it. Now, you probably ask, why did he do this? Well, it only set in about a year after that, kind of like you said too, where, really master it for a year. Within a year, it finally clicked in my head that this underwriting, it's not to get people approved. It's not to get people declined. It's to see how expensive are you going to be. It's a risk selection. So anytime they say underwritten policy, I think, how risky are you? That's the way to address it. And really, when you're just starting out here, you don't have to know everything, but you need to know a little bit about everything. And doing that exercise, because you might not think that diabetes isn't that bad. I got a story that I can talk here in a minute for this exact same thing that's happened this morning with different conditions that a lady didn't even know she had. But just because something is well controlled or something is well maintained doesn't actually mean that everything is correct or everything is right. Because the very first thing you want to think of here is you in this application, it's you and them versus the company is really what it is. The company is going to decide yes or no, but you're still going to be there for this client that you now have. Just because it gets declined doesn't mean that they get pushed back or their policy cancels, whatever it is. It's still you and them. So really, your first initial thought, you need to know how risky is this person. That's really the first place to start. Now, when you talk about adding on to your knowledge and becoming more knowledgeable, how do you do that?
By not shying away from underwriting.
By getting declines.
That too.
By getting your butt kicked from companies. Because I tell you, soon enough, if you're like me, him, and her here, you'll turn into this soon enough. If you get a decline letter, you get pissed off. Like when we were in here, because I've been out all week, and I was checking something for our morning meeting, and I went to the submitted apps because I wanted to see how many we're down to from like 70 or 80 when I left. And it was down to 25, and I was like, oh, that's great. They're doing a lot of work on the submitted apps. Perfect. We're going to get paid a lot here pretty soon. And then I looked, and there was like 9 applications in decline. And I just go, what the hell's going on here?
Yeah.
And so for the first hour of the morning, I'm calling companies. Why did this get declined? Why did this happen? Why did this, figure everything out? Because it lights a fire underneath you. It really does. Just because you get declined, you don't go, oh well. You're like Eeyore. You're like, well, they still have their coverage. It's got to light that fire underneath you. But then too, it has to excite you to figure out why. And I think that's one of the biggest areas that you can look into when you're doing research, when you're studying this, when you're finding the material, is you need to find out why. So, Victoria, let me ask you here. Why do companies not like people who are diabetic and have other alarming conditions?
Well, because it's expensive to treat those things. And usually it's a deteriorating disease where other things will start popping up on top of uncontrolled diabetes.
That's what happened to, and we'll get into the Millman side of it here. That's his specialty right here. But I had one this morning to where it was a lady we applied for with Medico. Okay, so Medico, and you'll soon know this off the top of your head here. Medico, it's a 5-year question for diabetes and anything. Okay, so comes back declined. We get the Millman report. She sends it over to me. We're looking at it. It says, well, she had an injection into her spine last month in November. Great. Just happened to forget that. But I go 2 years back to 2020, and there's one doctor's visit where there's 13 different diagnostic codes for this check-in. One of them is insulin use it's like chronic insulin use. The other one is diabetes with cardiovascular issues. And then the third one is major depressive disorder. So I'm looking through the medication. This goes back to 2014. She's never been diagnosed any insulin, but it's in there. She doesn't know about it. She's not diagnosed. She hasn't taken any depression or anxiety medications, yet she's diagnosed with major depressive disorder. Same thing with the cardiovascular. It's just hypertension and cholesterol. She's never had a stent, never had anything wrong with her arteries, anything, but it's in there. So with underwriting here, she didn't really understand why it was declined. Because a lot of these people that you talk to, even you talk to some of the people that are in the worst health possible, they think they're in the best health possible, even when they're not, or vice versa. When people think they're super healthy, I just got one little thing, I just have Parkinson's, that's it.
Just one.
Or I take one medication and it's carbidopa levodopa, or a dementia, or dementia.
Memantine.
Oh, how's your health? Oh, it's great. And then, I forgot to tell you about the memantine. And it goes, well, that explains it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I forgot.
And now I see why you have dementia here. You forgot to tell me about it. But really, some of these people you have to be careful with. And there's an easy way to approach it. And when you first approach it, it's hard to tell people they're in bad health. It sucks. It really does. And tell them that they don't qualify. It was one of the scariest things that I had to do when I first started. I hated those phone calls. Or if somebody was working, and like Chris, when I was training him, he was like, hey, can you talk to this person real quick? And there's 19, 20 medications. First you're like, okay, how can I phrase this in a good light? Now it's just kind of the nature of the beast with it, where the lady I was talking to, she was like, I don't understand. Why am I declined here? I'm in good health. I only take 5 or 6 medications. What is wrong? I had a friend they all have a friend that was just sicker than they are, that just got approved. Why didn't I get approved? But going through it, and she just goes, I don't understand. Like, why is this declinable? And I go, well, you have to look at it like this here. Okay. You're applying for a policy with a company that can say yes or no based upon your application. Okay. You're diabetic. In your record, it doesn't matter if it's true or not. A doctor put it in there. You have use of insulin, you have cardiovascular disease, and you're major depressive. And you just had an injection into your spine. It doesn't matter if it's true or not, but that's what's in your record. That is what you have to go by. And she just couldn't understand it. So, Brad, I kind of want to ask you here, because this is your expertise in your wheelhouse. How do you handle kind of those people that don't understand? When you have to address them, you have to say, hey, look, it doesn't look like we're going to qualify.
I generally will cover these things up front. I say, here's the process. It's going to be computerized. It's going to go to a computer. Whatever parameters they put in for declinable conditions, if they see anything in there, it's going to be bam, declined. And you can call the insurance company all you want, but they're going to say, well, it's got to be appealed. It's got to come off the insurance record. Which can take months. And I take declines personally. I hate declines. I get offended because I feel like I do my job, to get people approved. And then some computers telling me it's declined. They don't even, I don't have that. And I can tell you story upon story of ridiculous things that get into the Milliman report. It's either human error or insurance fraud, but you have to get it off of there. And you have to have the original doctor, sign a letter stating that, yeah, this was wrong. It shouldn't be in there. That goes to Milliman. They sit on it for a month. Then they send it to the insurance company. They sit on it for a month. And then finally they might, issue the policy. But very frustrating. But these things, some of it can be avoided up front. I mean, we have no idea what's in the report until they get declined. But one of the key things to ask for, do you see any specialists? One thing people avoid to ask, what's your height and weight? They'll go through the medical questions, get halfway through oh yeah, what's your height and weight? Well, it's way out of line. Okay, now it's either 20% rate up or you don't qualify, you just did all that work for nothing. Or if you knew up front, they're out of line, you could put them with the company that doesn't ask for that. Specialists, you've seen any specialists, oh yeah, this and this. Oh yeah, one more, I see a nephrologist. Mm-hmm. Well, insurance company's going to see that and red lights go off. Nephrologist, kidney issues, that's a big deal. So there's a lot of things you can cover up front to try to ferret out what's going on with the applicant, but sometimes, it's just things come back, and I'll usually go to rxhistories.com right away if it gets declined. So they get the report emailed. We take a look at it. I had one, it was 180 pages. And I'm trying to go through there and control it just to find things wrong. And it was a nightmare. But we finally figured out what was going on. But sometimes it can be little things. A simple medication like prednisone, for instance. They hand that stuff out like candy for bronchial infections and that sort of thing. If it shows up in the Milliman report they were on prednisone within 2 years, guess what? It's going to get declined. They forget that stuff. They think it's, oh yeah, that was just nothing. But the more that you can do on the front end to talk to them, take your time. Don't blaze through the medical questions. You got to slow down. If you hear them pause on something, okay, what's going on there? You have to, I hear some agents, I'm just like, blah, 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 blah. It's like that guy at the end of the commercial where they're going 50,000 miles an hour just to get it through. Okay, you answer no to everything, we'll get it submitted. That's a tick on the board. You have to really slow down. I mean, these conditions, most people can't even pronounce them or know what they are. So you have to take your time with that. That's a time that now you're a professional. The joking around stuff is over. We're going to get serious now. And you take your time and go through that and find out what you can up front. Generally, I definitely like to get the medications early. Medications indicate conditions, and some have multiple conditions. Blood thinners are classic. You don't Google it, oh, it's a blood thinner. You don't put that in the diagnosis field. Why do you take the blood thinner? Why do you take metoprolol? Is it for blood pressure or do you have a heart rhythm disorder? I don't know. My doctor gave it to me. But, they tell an underwriter that, they're going to say, well, you got to talk to your doctor. Mm-hmm. We need to find those things out. Everything's got to be, as best to your knowledge and belief at the time of application. So anyway, I can go on and on, but.
So I want to piggyback two things off of that. Number one, this was just something to make everybody laugh here. We had a girl here that was an agent. And, when you ask health questions, that's the most serious time. All right, this is like right before you close the deal. This is for you to get qualified where, you want to use your stern, your mom voice, your dad voice. This is what we got to get through here. We had a girl, when she would do health questions, I just had to laugh. Like she would be like, okay, like almost like a cheerleader. We're like, all right, ready, guys? Okay, so your first question is, in the past 2 years, have you been treated for, or been advised to have treatment for any of the following? And I just wanted to be like, I would not take you seriously. Like, I wouldn't. Like, this is the most serious point of this application. This is the gritty of it here is you got to get through this. Everything else is hogwash. Doesn't matter. If you can't get through it, then why are you doing it? You're just doing it to ask questions? No, it's not a fun. This is a very serious, but boy, something about it just really irked me. I don't know why. It was just because I could like picture in my head, if I'm like the old guy and I hear the, all right, okay, first question. And I'm like, oh, God. I'd be like, sorry, sweetie, I'm not giving you a Medicare number or my checking account here. You're going to go shop at Ulta and do something with it, but you're not going to help me with my med sub. There's a reason that they're not around anymore, but I don't want to say it was that personally, but it's a big deal with it. So not only that, but now to piggyback off what he was saying, Christopher, I want to ask you about this here, because you're starting to learn it more on a daily basis and really see the value behind it. How useful is it asking those questions before we even start looking into plans? Like, are you diabetic? How's your heart history? Do you have any history of cancer? How has that kind of helped you in your start here of becoming your own agent? Kind of set the ground floor.
Right. Well, there's essentially, I guess you could just call it a checklist. That's why I have it's a template, and I just take that template and I copy and paste it right into the notes, and I just go one by one and down and if you ask them, like, let's say, do you have diabetes, or where you have like respiratory issues, or so on and so forth, if they tell you anything, you're going to type it right into those notes, right? Be specific, let them talk about whatever they're going through. That way you have it right there, and you're not going to miss anything, and then basically starts with, are you a smoker, and ends with prepared statement and everything in between, height and weight and so on and so forth. So it's going to be right there in your notes. Sometimes, essentially you just want to cross the T's and dot the I's, right? And then you can move on. You're going to get all their medications, right? But you want to know what the lay of the land is, what the story is. And Yeah, and the once they are telling you about their history, then you let them talk, and you, of course, you want to be able to type accurately or as close as you can, while you're listening to them talk. And if you have to go back and clean up the notes a little bit, so you know what I mean, doesn't so that they make sense.
Here's the beauty of it too, is that especially if you are a newer type of agent coming into this here, there's no limit for how long you can talk to these people. You go through health stories and everything like that. That's a whole lot of conversation starters in there that you just have no idea about. I mean, how many times have I seen you leave a note that says American hero in it because they tell like a war story and then they have like conditions associated with it too. But the real reason we do that ahead of time is because once you've got some years under your belt, once you've got policyholders under your belt and you've got your phone ringing, what do you hate to do? Waste your damn time. Brad's got a saying here. It's MGA, and it stands for money generating activities. So what that means is when you're at your desk, or if you are at your desk at home, whatever, if you are there, you are doing an activity to generate money. If you are not doing a money generating activity, you're doing nothing. So it's not helping you. A whole lot of people love to pass off busy work and everything like that, or when they're trying to, I've gone to some people here to where they'll look at an account for an hour before they even call them. And I just go, what the hell are you doing? And then you call them and it goes to voicemail. And I go, you just wasted that entire hour.
Creative avoidance.
That is why it's so important to have that template to start. Because if you just ask these people, you say, hey, how's your health been? 60, 70% of them are going to say, yeah, it's been good, or it's been okay. Well, good or okay doesn't pay the bills. Good or okay isn't asking the question, how's your diabetes with complications? It's yes or no.
Yeah, good and okay since my heart attack 6 months ago.
Yeah, 6 months, or since my last injection 2 weeks ago. Let's apply for insurance and hopefully they'll accept me. So once you become more in demand, once your skills grow, the number one thing you hate to do is waste your time. And just by having people say, oh, I'm healthy, you can't assume it. You really can't, because there's so many one-offs that we know about. I had one that was a one-off for hydroxychloroquine prescribed by a rheumatologist, but the lady's not diagnosed with rheumatoid arthritis. She's got osteoarthritis and it's for inflation. And it was a one-time fill and she filled it and she just never took the pills. Okay. We just submitted that one after it got declined with Aetna, which is your automatic underwriter, to Manhattan Life with that paragraph that I just said. So we can talk to a human. So really you want to do your research beforehand because you don't want to waste your time. If they say they are healthy and then you go in for your close and you say, all right, we're going to do this Medico Plan G here and it's going to be $120. Now, I don't know if you qualify, so let me get these questions pulled up here. And you go in, all right, so you said you're pretty healthy, we shouldn't have an issue. Number one, within the past 5 years, have you been diabetic with complications? They go, yeah, I got a pacemaker. And you go, you just wasted all your time, because now that turns from all right, we're going to get this done, we're going to help you out, to now I got to let you down and say more than likely with diabetes and a pacemaker, you're going to be stuck for a while before you can get somebody that's going to take you. I'm not saying that you're forever stuck. It's just going to be some different situations that line up and your premium is going to have to be really high before somebody does take you.
That's something that happens to all of you. I mean, I'm sure it's happened where you find out that they didn't tell you something. You asked them the question, but they just didn't tell you the truth about it. And then, we just found out that so and blah, blah, blah. And well, okay, but you asked them the question. So I don't know if there's anything you can do to address that, except for, if you ask them a direct question and they don't give you an honest answer, then,
So it goes down to a few factors with that. I still kick myself where I think I've got a guy I got to call back, I think next week here, because we went through the health questions and everything. And, you get to the end, he's perfectly healthy. And I'm like, all right, yeah, you have anything upcoming? He's like, oh yeah, I got cataract surgery. Or yeah, I got physical therapy I got to do. I'm like, damn it, I just went through everything with you, and the very last, you never want it to be the very last question ever. That's when it sucks the worst.
Right.
But when addressing what you're saying here is, they're not always going to be truthful.
Right. Okay.
You have to play it. But the way that you can do that and you can kind of secure yourself is you need to start asking questions when they're giving you answers.
Mm-hmm.
So if they say, like Brad was talking about with medications, they're on a blood thinner. You know, you want to ask them how long you've taken it for and what do you take it for. But you really have to get in there and start to figure it out. Because now this person's health insurance is in your hands and you are their expert. And guess what? Experts aren't wrong very often. There's a reason that you label yourself as an expert. It's because you get people approved, not because you submit 7 applications all in one day, get 7 ticks on the board, and 6 come back declined. You know, I've got a saying I use a lot here where we don't throw spaghetti on the wall just to see which noodle sticks. She's stolen it.
I told you I was borrowing.
I think Christopher's stolen it too. Chris over there used to use it as well. But it's really true. That's how you want to approach your underwriting is, look, we've got one shot here, and I got to find the best company for you to qualify at, and that's where my expertise comes in.
And you have to, and to go back to what Christopher was asking, with people just not being upfront, you have to kind of realize you're having to maneuver in your own way around these questions and ask, sometimes go back to it, but asking it a different way to make sure you're not leaving anything out or, you know, letting them leave anything out when, you know, you ask, do you have any upcoming appointments or procedures? No, I'm good. Okay, well, let's talk about your doctors, your cardiologist. Okay, are you going to see him anytime soon? You know, that's just kind of another way to ask, you know, poke and prod, do you have anything else upcoming? Or, you know, sometimes you just have to circle back around and ask things a different way than you asked. And that's happened so many times where I've had, for example, one of my apprentices will ask, oh, you any health issues, you know, any this, that? No, nothing. And the call gets transferred over to me and I'll ask it kind of a different way. And yeah, actually, you know, I've got this scheduled and, you know, it comes up, but it's just kind of, you have to kind of learn, and it comes from talking to these people for a long time, which is learning how to tweak your questions in the way that will get them to open up to you, right? In a non-threatening way, in a non-judgmental way. And so that's kind of something you can do. But regardless, if they have just decided that they're not going to tell you or they're going to keep something from you, you can't control that.
It's going to come out in the wash eventually.
Yeah.
Well, I was going to say that's in the little template that I have, right? So it's do you have any upcoming surgeries or procedures or, you know,
therapy,
so on and so forth. And
appointments,
I'm sure you asked the guy that had the cataracts, but you probably asked him something along those lines, right? Oh, you did?
Yeah.
Okay. I can't believe that you don't
I know, I love
make
myself.
mistakes, right?
I know.
Okay.
But also, like, in just chit-chatting with them, you make it fruitful. You know, you ask about their family and this and that. And, oh, I just saw my daughter the other day. Oh, really? What did y'all do? Oh, well, I saw her because she had to take me to the doctor. I just wasn't in any shape to drive. Oh, well, what's happened with you? You know, you're learning about them, of course, and you want to learn about them. But, you know, sometimes they'll accidentally tell you things, or, you know, they'll tell you something that kind of it relates to something else, and it spurs you to, you know, dig into that a little further, whereas they might have not been as open and upfront with you about something, or they might have left that off. But you just have to listen for those kinds of things. You know what I mean?
You know, the other thing too, you have to understand the legalese in these medical questions. You know, one thing that pops up, let's say somebody's had cancer. Well, they're going to want to see that person every 6 months or every year for the rest of their life. That's just the way it goes. It's a business. But you have these questions, do you have any follow-up visits, pending surgeries, anything? And I'll tell the client, look, when the underwriter calls you, don't answer yes that you have follow-up visits. That's a checkup. That is different. Follow-up visit is that, okay, they found something and you're waiting on the lab results. You know, that can make or break a decision. So the client has to understand the medical question and the way it's asked. You know, I say, you have wet macular degeneration and you're taking injections. Well, injections for what? Well, I called the company and they say, well, that's injections for the macular degenerations. That's not back injections. But it doesn't say that.
Yeah.
and that could say, well, I do get injections on my back or something, but there's a little bit of coaching involved there with, when you're talking to an underwriter from an insurance company, the questions are yes and no. They're going to try to get you to expound on things and go down a rabbit hole and disclose things that you don't have to, that can lead to a decline. That's their job. But, you don't want to lead the witness or anything like that, but you want to explain to them, this is the correct answer,
Right, you're prepping them for the
Yeah,
end.
you don't have to say, I have a follow-up visit coming up in 6 months for my cancer. Decline. It's not a follow-up visit. That's a checkup.
Yeah.
It's a routine checkup. So it's different, and people have to understand the way the legalese works on these questions. And I'll explain those things as I'm going through it, and sometimes people get in this no mode. They're saying no before you even have the sentence finished. No. They're not even listening to you. I had one, everything looked clean. Everything submitted. I called to follow up with her because she has to do her telephone interview. And she says, I can't talk now. I'm on my way to physical therapy.
Oh, no.
I'm just like, what? So.
Or maybe they're watching The View while you're asking these health questions.
This is pay attention time. And, they have to understand, if they don't know what the condition is, doesn't mean they don't have it. I mean, if they haven't heard the term before, I don't know. I mean,
That's why in my caveat, I say more than likely that probably means you ain't got it. I say then that means you don't have it if you don't know what it is. No, because I had a lady with surgeons, we just got that appeal in too. But few things here I'll say, and then we'll kind of go around with their one tip for just starting underwriting. Underwriting, you're like a private investigator, is what you are. Going back to what Victoria was saying here, if you just approach somebody, if with you being 67, if I talk to you and within 5 minutes I'm asking for medical conditions and prescriptions, you're like, who the hell is this guy?
Yeah.
He doesn't know anything about me. It's funny because Michelle went through that when we got our car insurance. So we just combined our car insurance here for this month. And the car insurance company called her for a life insurance quote because she accidentally clicked on something. So this life insurance agent calls her, and they're just like, she didn't even try to start a conversation. Within like 2 or 3 minutes, she was like, okay, what medications are you taking? She's like, she's like, I don't have to tell you. And they go, well, it said you wanted a quote here. And she's like, I already have life insurance with my company. I don't need this. And they go, well, we'll see if we can beat it. And they go, what conditions are you diagnosed with? And she's just like, you didn't even talk to me yet. There is a point to the private investigator, but you have to work your way into that conversation. So when they do ask questions, when they do, say things that are in there that pique your interest, you need to be actively listening. We're carrying a conversation to create the relationship and to have the balance there and have the comfort. So we can discuss things like that. A lot of times talk about your own health too. I had a lady where I told her I was born with a cleft lip and palate, and she had something very similar to it. And we went down a rabbit hole for an hour and a half, just talking about dentists and orthodontists and amoxicillin. You never know what you have in common with these people, but you have to be listening, just like you said, because there are things in there that you need to pull out. It's private investigator. It's almost like your boyfriend, your girlfriend's cheating on you, but you're just trying to see if they'll admit it.
Yeah. How was work? Even though they didn't go, they didn't go to work.
Yeah, I got to tag them up. Yeah, that's right. We share locations in our phone. There's no, but it's kind of one like that where you're looking for that advantage and that information. That's how you really should approach it. I would say I'll start here as we kind of wrap up. My tip for you, if you're starting out, this is your first time underwriting, because not only is it MedSup, which is primarily what we underwrite here, if you want cancer policies, you want heart attack policies, hospital indemnity plans, final expense, there is no way to avoid underwriting in your future. If you're used to doing MAPDs, DSNPs, CSNPs, anything with the phrase SEP in front of it, you'd never had to worry about this before because they can't tell you no. They just take you. As long as everything checks out, there's no health questions. Well, now, when you're trying to upsell and you're trying to get these rated premiums per month, you got a lot to learn. But the way to start is Like I said in the beginning, you need your list. Go pull any application out there. Really, the more serious, the more health questions there are, the better it is. I would suggest Prosperity Life right now. It looks a little confusing when you print it off, but they've got about 30 health questions, whereas everybody has about 15 or 20. Go through that entire application and then have it up on your computer. Make a Word document, copy it over. But after every question, enter a paragraph and go over what that condition is, how much it costs to treat that condition, and then what medications are commonly prescribed. And that's your cheat sheet for the rest of your career. Because of a lot of things where people don't realize, you have somebody with rheumatoid arthritis, and let's say they get infusions every other week or so. A lot of people, they don't look at their explanation of benefits, especially if they have a supplement, because they know it's covered. But I tell people too, and they're like, yeah, I'm getting these infusions. And I go, as long as you have the infusions, you are not changing anything. And they go, well, why is that? And I go, have you looked at the bill? And they go, no, I haven't. I'm, okay. Each infusion is about between $4,000 to $6,000. And you're getting them every 2 weeks. So in that question where it says, have you had treatment for rheumatoid arthritis in the past 2 years? I can immediately click in my brain and I go, if this gets to be this bad, this is going to cost the insurance company $4,000 to $6,000 every few weeks. That is a risk that they're not going to take because they're only paying $150 a month. If you were the insurance company, would you take somebody that's costing you, say, $12,000 every 3 months and you only make $400 off their premium? Absolutely. You wouldn't be in business. Mm-hmm. Absolutely not. So number one, start with the conditions, why they're bad, how much they cost to treat, and what medications, because that's your whole groundwork there. Victoria, what would be your tip for starting and learning underwriting?
Yeah. So again, the first tip is don't shy away from it. Don't find a reason to not underwrite. But I get it. I remember I was a new agent at one point, and I was overwhelmed by underwriting. But yes, one smart thing you can do your homework, which is going through everybody's applications, is getting familiar with it. But if you have somebody on the phone who needs to be underwritten, it can feel like a really scary feeling and overwhelmed, and you want to look like a professional, but you don't want to look like you're unfamiliar with it. And this is even for agents who have been doing Medicare for a long time, but they've just shied away from subs because of the underwriting. A simple thing I would do when I was new to it was somebody, for example, they want to shop their rate. They're paying $180 for their plan G. Okay, well, that's the price to beat. Go to the lowest rate. Let's start there. And okay, this is good. You just know in your mind, this is the rate I'm looking at. This is the company I'm looking at. Start digging into their health history. As they're talking, as they're rattling off maybe some serious health questions, start looking into that lowest prices application, and you can Control F and search that particular condition, whether it be AFib, Control F, search AFib. And if it looks like that carrier is not okay with that, okay, go to the company with the next lowest price. Do the same thing, Google or search that particular ailment until maybe you can, once you get to start getting down to the companies that are more, that are higher priced than what they have then, okay, well, I say, it looks like anybody that's, is going to approve you with your conditions, it's just going to be a higher rate and it's not going to put you in a better position. But I've had that happen where you do come out with a company who's got a lower rate that will be okay with those conditions. But maybe you kind of just break it down that way instead of just being overwhelmed with everybody's underwriting. Just take one carrier at a time and search that way. And then to let the client know what you're doing. Either do some little chit chat to stall them while you're doing that, or just tell them exactly what you're doing, which is, you know what, if you'll bear with me, I'm actually digging through the tiny print one by one for you to see what we can do. And they appreciate that. They will stand by and just let you do your thing and just let them know, kind of walk them through what you're doing. But that's that's kind of one way I started getting myself familiarized with underwriting and feeling more comfortable, until eventually it starts coming. You just remember some of these things, and it's quicker just to search.
That's what's so pivotal that you talked about there. And this is what everybody, if you're just starting underwriting, you need to listen to this here. Go through each application with the person on the line. There is nothing more than letting your guard down and showing these people, look, I'm an expert in this field, but I'm a human too. I need to look at everything before I suggest something. So in this case here, even, just reading to yourself what's going on, what conditions you're looking for. That's how you're going to learn these companies very quickly, is if you familiarize yourself with how each of them are different. But I can't tell you how many times number one, Christopher can attest to this, I hate silence on the phone. Absolutely hate it, because it makes it weird. Not only you get awkward, but then the other people get antsy. And if I ever have to hear somebody go, "Are you still there?" I'm like, all right, I'm thinking too hard or doing something here.
Even if you have to hum sometimes.
But that's exactly, just make random noises. Just make yourself sound busy. But just let them know what's going on. The lady we helped with was Cigna for this morning, where we had to go back in and start the app. What I kept telling her, or kept telling you to say, look, I think we messed up on the first page. I can't go back to it. I put in the wrong incorrect Part B date. I have to restart the app, but it's okay. Jacob's taking care of it. He's a lot quicker at it than I am. We'll have it done in just a minute. But that's kind of what happened there. Same thing with underwriting, where you say, okay, you're coming in at 200. I've got a bunch of different options here. Still don't reveal the price yet until you decide what you're going to do. But just because you read the health questions for Aetna and you're going alphabetical, that doesn't mean you have to do Aetna from the very beginning. If they qualify, just take a look at what they do and say, okay, no Parkinson's, no dementia, no rheumatoid arthritis, no diabetes, no cancer, no heart attack, no stroke. Just go through real quick, say, okay, I think we'll qualify there. So that's one option. We have Aetna. Let me go next. Well, what's the next one? You have Ascendo, same underwriting as Aetna. After that, let's go to Bankers Life, then to Capital Life, then to Federal, I think is one we have now. Then you go to GPM and Great Southern and Humana, and you work your way down. And you take your time. That's the key thing that you're talking about. You take your time and don't just say, it's 150, it's 150 here with Manhattan. I suggest we do a Manhattan, and you've never looked at how they ask their health questions. Do not rush this, because again, you want to make sure you take your time, because your time is valuable. And if you're going to suggest something, it better work out. Because
Yeah, there's one area I want to talk about, which is very important. It's kind of ambiguous, and every company has this question: do you have any upcoming treatments, including cataract surgery or joint replacement? Okay, these are things they could go the rest of their life and never have it done, but we hear a lot of times, well, yeah, I've got cataracts. Well, do you think you're going to have it done within the next 2 years? Why do I ask that? Because these companies have a 2-year contestability period. If you answered no to that question and you put in a big bill and it's in the medical records that the doctor has recommended cataract surgery or a joint replacement during that period, the insurance company has the right to give them their money back and cancel the application. And if you've had a heart attack with a $500,000 bill, that bill's going to be on you. So you have to be very careful with that one. It's kind of on the fence, but I'll tell people I'd rather not write the app than if somebody's like, well, yeah, you see halos at night, how you doing? Oh, yeah. Well, more than likely, they're going to need to have cataract surgery soon. Some companies are okay that, well, if you don't have it done within a year, we'll let it slide. But they have no qualms about canceling that policy and saving all that money. I mean, so this is serious. It's a serious thing, and you have to be very careful with it. Same thing with joint replacement. Well, I'm bone on bone, but, I'm 80, I'm not going to have surgery. You sure? Because here's what can happen. They need to understand that. So it's something that, and there's several other questions in there like that, but clients need to understand, if you lie on the application and you put in a big bill, now they will go back to the time of application and check the medical records and see if they can get their money, and they're not going to pay for anything. So you have to be very careful with that.
All right, one last tip from you here for somebody starting new to underwriting. What would you, besides what Victoria said, besides what I've said, what would you suggest to them?
Number one, learn how to pronounce everything. We've got some big names in there. Learn how to go Google it, figure out how to pronounce it, figure out what it does, what these conditions are. Learn how to pronounce the medications. I did a class once just on that because then people are like way off the map. If you can't pronounce it and they can, they know they're not talking to a professional. So learn those things, learn what they do, learn the different things. Some medications are multiple conditions. If you know all that off the bat, generally, somebody I still do it to this day. They tell me a medication, I don't know what, boy, I'm Googling it. Oh, do you have this? What do you take it for? Sometimes medications, they take stuff for things not even listed. Torvastatin, I take that for depression. Well, that's actually a cholesterol medication. You sure you're taking, I can't put that on the application. Right. So learn that stuff and then learn to take your time and do your homework. We just took on several new companies. First thing I did, I went in there, looked at the underwriting guidelines, try to learn the best of my ability, what they're going to take and what they're not going to take, so there's some homework involved there.
Mm-hmm. I think that to kind of wrap it up in here too, and I'm hoping you learned a lot from what we're talking about here, but it's a ever evolving circle is what it is. The company's underwritings change, companies change, things they take change. You'll find new stuff every now and then, like who takes Parkinson's, who takes rheumatoid arthritis, we found out Humana takes Wet Mac for injections because they don't ask about it. There's so many different things out there for you to learn that if you try and throw yourself into learning every company at the very beginning, you're going to burn yourself out and you're going to be scarred from it. And you're going to say, I like the $0 more because I don't have to worry about these. I just got to worry if I have an SEP. That's it. That's so much easier. But if you can just master from the very beginning, pronunciation, know what the conditions are, and know how to get the information about the conditions. That's underwriting right there. You are the underwriter for the company. You're the field underwriter. You have to put your name on as the agent, but essentially that's what you are. You're saying, hey, I put my name on this application and this is how this person answered these questions. In my eyes, without seeing their medical records, they qualify for coverage. Based upon what you have in paper, we passed everything on paper. Now, once that gets sent in, different thing. They have access to the records. But you as a field underwriter are saying, I deem this person healthy enough for coverage. That's why you're putting your name on it. That's why these people can't just go and apply themselves. Because there's got to be somebody attached to it and somebody responsible for if they have to come back for the 2-year period too. So that is it for our little Friday edition here for underwriting. So thank you guys for tuning in. If you do have any questions, anything like that, we are here. If you've got some conditions you need help with underwriting, certain situations that are going on where you don't know how to handle, be sure to leave a comment or call Steven. Steven loves to be called. Call our 9404 number. Please do. So for now, that's it. Everybody have a good weekend and go sell something. Thanks, guys.